looks like it. You can. Do you know how to have a look? Hi, so here we are live. It's been 3 weeks since Bec and I sat here and did this, and yes, it feels like a lifetime. So much has happened in that time, because I was on holiday, and then last week we didn't do it because this time last week we were at the Pier House waiting for our conference to start. So yeah, we didn't do it last week. And Bec, the week before when I was away, Bec had an interview with the gorgeous Rohini Ross, which was an amazing interview. So it's really, really great to be here, to be back in this seat and back doing our live TV show. I know it's one of our favourite. To be fair, everything we do is
we're just gonna say we start a conversation saying it's one of our favourite things. It's like, no, everything's our favourite thing. We love all the things we get to do.
I was having a conversation earlier on with my daughter today, and she said, you just don't do anything, Mom, do you, that you don't want to do? She had to have an operation last Wednesday, and so she's been hanging out with us because she, through her recovery, and she's just literally had a real kind of look at our life. And yeah, so in a conversation this morning, she went, you just don't do anything you don't want to do you? So it is quite true when we say this is our favorite thing, and then the next thing we do is our favorite thing. We just have one long favorite thing. Conferences are my favorite thing. Retreats are my favorite thing. Being on YouTube, speaking to you amazing guys, is my favorite thing. So
I was talking to my mom last night, and she said something about wanting to retire. And I kind of laughingly said, I don't think I'll ever retire.
Me neither.
And then she said, yeah, but it's different for you because you're a lot younger. And I kind of laughed, and before I could say the next thing, she went, well, actually, what I'd like to do is just have someone pay me to do all the things I really like to do. Well, I just burst out laughing. I said, Mom, that's exactly the life I've got set up.
And why wait to retire?
Why would I retire from that?
To do that? Yeah, why wait to retire to do that?
So it's good to be back.
Yeah, it's really good to be back, and we've got a lot of amazing things going on. I feel like if you're not aware that we spent last Thursday, Friday and Saturday having our second North Devon Mental Health and Wellbeing Conference. Where have you been?
Shame on you.
Yeah.
How could you have missed it?
But that's what we've been doing. And I feel like kind of hanging out in that space, being in that room with some of the amazing people that were there, I feel like we've all kind of seen ourselves in a different light and seen this understanding to a whole new level. So I just think some amazing things are going to come off the back of this conference. And one of the things that we have decided to do is like a little sample. We've called it mini mentoring. It did go out on our newsletter this morning. So if you aren't signed up to our newsletter, I know that there's a link below this YouTube video, so you can find it there and sign up, because obviously you should be receiving our newsletters. They're amazing, and we're always up to all sorts of exciting things that you would love to join in with, I'm sure. So yes, the mini mentoring it's a December thing. We just decided, it's a time of gifts, it's Christmas, why don't we just gift out some little things that we're up to? So it is a paid program, but it is very, very reasonable. I think it's not expensive.
£30.
What she said. And yeah, we would really, really love you guys to experience the calls that we do when we do our mentoring. It's really great. So yeah, join up.
Can you just shut my laptop down, Deb? Because I think that's what's reflecting on my glasses.
That better?
No, I don't know what's reflecting my glasses, everyone. I'm very sorry about that. It's a bit. Is that better?
I don't know.
Anyway, you can just have to trust that I've got very beautiful eyes. So yeah, as Deb was saying, we've kind of got the mini mentoring coming up in December. Just not long before the conference, we kind of went into conference mode, and for a good few weeks, it didn't feel like there was ever going to be life after
life
the
wasn't going to happen
conference.
after the conference, no.
But just on the off chance there was going to be life after the conference, we had a couple of chats about how it would be really nice sort of through December and into January, kind of coming up with some small programs, some nice little programs, some kind of gifty programs programs. So there's the mini mentoring that Deb just mentioned, but we're also doing, and this one we're really excited about, we're doing an advent calendar. And I mean, I absolutely love Christmas. I'm a real kid when it comes to Christmas, and I'm going to be buying my advent calendar in the next week or so anyway. But we're going to do, we want to do a little advent calendar for you to open every day. But it won't have chocolate in, I'm sorry to say, but it will have some wonderful gift in it from us.
If there is something better than chocolate, this
might be it. Yeah. So again, the advent calendar is a paid gig, but it's £15, and every day from the 1st to the 24th of December you get an email to open as your advent calendar to take you nicely.
And we've literally been sparking off some ideas today
what that's going to be,
what we're going to do with that. So
yeah, so it's going to be a fantastic little daily gift to kind of take you into the Christmas spirit. So we're really, really excited about that. And again, you can find out about that on our website or drop us a message. And then the other thing we have got coming up in December, which is a little bit more than £15, is our next retreat. And we've called it this time the Winter Warmer, because who doesn't love to get, you know, all cozy and warm and snuggled up in winter. So we're doing a Winter Warmer retreat, 6th to the 9th of December. And I think that's £250. And we've got 4 rooms left. Now, they can be single or double occupancy rooms, so we could have, you know, another 8 people potentially. But if you want to know about getting a room at our retreat, yeah, there's only 4 rooms left, so grab one while you can. It would be fantastic to kind of get everyone together just before we go in Christmassy mode. So that's kind of what we got coming up, which just super excited about all those things, aren't we?
We're always excited about something.
We usually are, aren't we? So on with the show.
So our living and learning. Oh my goodness, I think this could take up the entire show.
I know. When we kind of we write out a little bit of a schedule so we remember.
Yeah, that's why my eyes keep going that way, so that I know what I'm supposed to be saying.
I wrote it on the board earlier and thought 15 minutes to talk about this doesn't feel enough. We'll see how we go.
So I think it's kind of going to be fairly obvious that the conference has loomed large in our life over, you know, for the last few weeks in the run up to it, and obviously actually kind of being at the conference and what unfolded there and what has unfolded since. And one of the things that I can say, one of the things that I really saw was, since I've been around this understanding, you know, the 3 principles, and heard about Sid Banks, I know that one of the things that he talked about a lot was that all the information that you will ever need is in the feeling. And I know he would talk, you know, if you were going to talk to a group or whatever, if you get a group of people in a really good feeling, you know, that's where information is, that's where magic happens. And I know Michael Neal talks about the space that we all have within, and I know at the conference we talked about a spark that every human being has within them. So whatever it is, you know, however that makes sense to you, but what I can really see is that the feeling in the room during those 3 days was beyond anything I think I have ever experienced in my entire life. And certainly being aware of it and being aware of what it is. The only other time that I can say that I've come anywhere close, I think, is when my children were born, and that moment of kind of seeing your newborn child for the very first time. You kind of go into this state. Well, I did. Maybe this isn't everyone's experience, but you know, I just kind of went into this state of bliss. And I know, like, we've been doing some follow-up interviews. We've had some amazing chats with people, and I was lucky enough to have a chat with Dick and Bec, and he said that Sid talked about when we touch that feeling, when we touch that place within us, only good things can come from that. And my own experience since though, you know, during those 3 days, I just saw so many good things happening. The people, the workers at the hotel just knew there was something magic going on in that room. My daughters turned up at the venue twice for a few minutes, and both of them they felt that something was happening there and couldn't really explain it. And and the things that have been unfolding within my family since those 3 days has blown me away. So for me, my living and learning has been to glimpse that feeling, to glimpse what it was that Sid was talking about when he said the feeling is everything. It means everything. And what I saw around that feeling is that, I just kind of said it was amazing in that room. It was brilliant. And I do think there is something very, very special happens when a group of people get together in that way. But paradoxically, that feeling is yours, and it's mine, and it's Bec's. It's not, it isn't exclusively about a room full of people, a baby being born, the best thing that's ever happened to you in your life. It isn't exclusively. What I have seen during this week is I can touch that feeling more and more and more with nothing particularly going on. So
yeah, it's funny story. My dad messaged when you were saying that about the conference and the only other real times you kind of experienced that. My dad messaged this morning, kind of asked, how did the conference go? When I was a kid, we used to go every year to like a church camp in Anglesey, and without fail, like 51 weeks of the year for me were all about like building up to that, and then like getting over it and then building up to it again. And it was my absolute favorite thing in the calendar in my year, and I just loved it. So when he asked me how was it, I kind of put something like at least as good as Anglesey camping, because I knew for him that would be like, oh, if Bec thinks it's as good as that, it must have been good. And it is that, isn't it, that we kind of have that. There are certain things in life that are just really precious and really beautiful times. And definitely for me, the conference was one of those. And there's just no way in the world that our living and learning this week was going to be anything other than a conference, really. Because it's definitely, that's what we've been living. We've been living in the space of the conference. I keep referring to it as this bubble of love. Like I've been messaging a few people since going, I'm still in the bubble of love, are you? Because that's kind of what it felt like. It just felt like someone got a massive bottle of bubbles and just went, and out came this bubble of love, and we all kind of got inside it somehow. And it just, the space was just incredible. And I know we touched on this a little bit earlier in a little webinar that we were doing around the thing for me, definitely, that really came out of that conference was the reminder of how much I can trust life. And that is just, I mean, it's something I've seen before. It's not, that wasn't kind of brand new to me in that, in the sense that I've never known that before, but it felt so new. It felt so fresh. It felt so kind of, it was just all over again. It was like, oh, I can trust life. Like there's nothing here that's weighing on my shoulders. This is, life has got this. I can turn up and have all this fun and play this game, and it's perfectly okay. It's like a gigantic soft play center that I can just bounce around in and jump around in and go crazy in. And I really, really, really deeply saw that again over the 3 days at the conference. And I think for me, one of the things that happened over those few days, there was maybe 3 or 4 people in the room that had some personal stuff going on. And I really watched how that personal stuff kind of evaporated in the space of what we were sharing. Like that it almost became, it was a problem for a moment, it was a problem for an hour, it was a problem for an hour and a half, and then it just started evaporating. And there was at least 4 people I had conversations with where they were having some personal stuff go on, various different things. Like it wasn't like a group thing. There was just various people, as there often is, who were kind of in that room partly because they'd got stuff going on. And I just watched them settle into, oh yeah, even this big horrible thing that appears to be happening for me, I can trust life and I can drop back into that. And that is massively kind of what came out of the conference for me, was this place of trust. Like we regularly kind of have conversations about, oh, what next with the business? A little bit like, you know, we just did at the beginning. This is what we've got coming up next. And I can see the times when I'm doing that from a place of, right, Deb, what's going on next with the business? We need to make this business work. We need to make sure people are whatever, signing up for stuff, listening to our stuff. And really, again, over the conference, over those 3 days, I just came back to that space of turn up and do what we do best. Give it 110%, and the rest is not on us. That's nothing to do with us. And just, I don't know, something about that trust and that it's so light-hearted, it's so light to touch, that it just, yeah, I can feel, like I feel stuff in my body a lot. I can feel how much looser my shoulders are than the week before the conference when it looked like it was all on me. And it was just huge.
Something that stuck out for me at the conference, and I know I've heard you speaking about this, so I know we had a man called Andy Winter come over from America with his absolutely gorgeous 15-year-old daughter, who is one of the wisest people I think I have ever met.
We got to share the stage with her.
We did. Oh, she's just gorgeous. And I know my thing, you know, one of the reasons why we talk a lot about relationships and kind of say putting the balance back into relationships is, and I know I can speak for Bec on this because I know we've had conversations, you know, both of us struggled with relationships. It wasn't our you know, our strong point. And there was a moment, you know, when Andy was speaking on the stage with his daughter, and he was talking about, you know, the thoughts that we have and the stories that we carry in our heads and the stories that we believe, and the thoughts that we believe. And what happens is when, you know, as human beings, we are connection, we are love, we are that bubble that we have been talking about. And then we have these thoughts that create the illusion of disconnection, create the illusion that, you know, we're not in love with each other, in, you know, not in a,
just in a really pure,
it just in a very beautiful way. Yeah, they kind of create that, they create separation, they create the feeling, you know, and that's how we get lost. And Andy said, you know, one of the things that he'd seen with what his thinking does is no thought is worth the beautiful connection that he has with his daughter. He's, you know, give me any thought that I might possibly believing that will cause a disconnection with my daughter. No thought is worth that. And that has really stuck with me over the last few days, you know, when I've been hanging out with Bec and Lucy, and I've been hanging out with my daughter and my grandson, and, you know, with other people and other members of my family. And I look at these people and I kind of think, yeah, what thought could possibly be worth a connection with any of these people? And I've, you know, any other human being, what thought could I believe that is worth the connection with another human being? Because to me, the magic is that connection. And when we feel that love and that connection, that's when we do great things. It's when amazing things happen out in the world, you know, when beautiful books get written, when great buildings get built, when, you know, our
amazing conferences
happen. You know, the things, you know, if you look around us as human beings, you know, we have computers, we have the internet, we have phones, we have lovely houses, we have beautiful flowers that grow in our gardens. And those all, you know, gardens, the way we arrange them, the way that we farm, the way that we grow food, the way beautiful things happen when we feel connected. And there is not a thought that it is worth believing that would take that connection away.
Yeah, and that same kind of idea, I heard that last year when we were at the conference in the Viva conference in Spain, and it was Judy Sedgman was talking, and I think she phrased it, and I think she's pointed to exactly what Andy was pointing to. What would you give up your peace of mind for? What's worth handing over your peace of mind for? Like, and I really saw that over the 3 days. And I was having a conversation with a brand new friend, and we were talking about hanging out at some point, and she kind of said, oh yeah, I'd love to hang out. Obviously, you know, it's a long journey, so maybe not very often. And I kind of saw that as like, but then hanging out is so much fun, and being in this conversation. How far would you travel to do that? Oh yeah, I'd actually travel to kind of the other side of, the other side of the moon to sort of hang out with the people that I love and be in this conversation. And it's so easy sometimes to kind of give up our peace of mind, or in Andy's case, give up the connection with his daughter for something, some silly thought that it isn't worth that connection. It isn't worth our peace of mind. That's way more precious.
And very often those thoughts are about being right, or being,
there's
kind of things like, oh,
like you used to say, would you rather be right or be happy?
Yeah.
And it is that. It's really that. It's really very much that kind of being happy is so simple.
So simple.
And like that was another one of the things that came out of the conference for me, was just coming back to that simplicity. When we learn not to be afraid of our experience, that changes the world. It changes our world.
It certainly does. And our world is where all change begins.
Yeah.
Within your world, that's when your world changes, the world changes.
Yeah. We've had a question.
Oh, okay.
And our question is, what are your experiences of depression? So our actual question for tonight is, what about when something bad happens? So maybe we can kind of pull those two questions in and talk to both of those a little bit. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. We are ready to move on to our question, aren't we? So maybe we just start with that, what are and definitely kind of where this conversation's going. What are our experiences of depression? Well, one of the things that blew my mind at the conference was Lucy, who is Bec's sister, who is the other person that works in our business. She stood up on the stage and spoke very, very openly about her experiences of depression, of what that is like for her, and what this understanding, how that has changed. And she was very, very honest about how she can still have thinking, she can still get into those places and still feel depressed. And I think one of the things that it's very easy for us to do, when we come across something like this, or we felt better for a while, is really beat ourselves up, because we feel, oh, you should know better now, or you've been depressed for long enough now, you should know better, and beat yourself up. And interestingly, one of the things that I'm doing right now is I kind of watched people do, and I've definitely watched Lou do that with herself. You know how easy it is when you watch someone else doing something, and you can see, it's way easier to see what someone else is doing and think, oh, they should be doing it differently. And I don't mean in that judgmental, I don't mean in that way. I just mean sometimes, when we can watch people struggling with the problem, we can see the solution because we're that little bit further back. Yeah. And I've definitely watched Lucy beat herself up and watched her get deeper into the mire with that, because she is so cruel to herself, and I've done it to myself. But watching her, what I saw was, it would be like, me and Bec work together, and it would be like if Bec said to me, Deb, I hate you, you're a mess, will you be nice so I can like you, please? From that place, how am I going to, no,
how is it possible for you to be nice to me if I've just said that?
and it kind of feels like we do that to ourselves, isn't it, sometimes? And so one of the interesting things I'm really doing with myself is kind of letting myself off the hook and loving my body and loving my hair and loving who I am. And I have seen a huge difference in myself from just kind of genuinely seeing that it's way more helpful. If I kind of said to Bec, I hate you, will you be nice so I can like you? Whereas if I said to Bec, even if I didn't mean it at first, to be fair, if I said to Bec, oh my gosh, you're great, you're one of the greatest people I've ever, will you do this for me? We're way more likely to do it, aren't we? So,
and I think even that is like there's somewhere in us where we can find, like, if in that example, even if you don't maybe think I'm great at what I'm doing now, there'll be somewhere you can find something nice to say about me.
Yeah.
And I actually, Lucy's been a great example for us tonight. I was actually having a conversation with Lucy earlier because she was reading something that someone else has written, and she's writing children's books at the moment, and she was reading somebody else's story that they're writing. she just had a real moment of, oh, they're such a great writer and I'm crap in comparison. And I kind of said to her, no, she's absolutely not crap. I've read her stuff and she's just not. And the two writing styles are just entirely different. And I was kind of saying to her, find the place where, like, if you kind of look at your writing from the place of your writing's really, really good, but that doesn't mean there isn't room for improvement. And so kind of see where the improvement can come from, rather than I'm just crap and there's no point. Because I just think in anything we do, there's good stuff and there's stuff we can improve.
Yep.
And within a couple of minutes, this other thing she was reading, oh, I've just found some stuff they can improve. Yeah, there you go, you see. It's like there's great stuff in all of us. And then there's always something we can be learning and seeing differently. And for me, that's kind of like that almost, when we do these kinds of things and we say stuff like that, for us, it is just all about being playful with it. And kind of answer a little bit more about the experience of depression. I wouldn't say particularly that I've experienced depression in the way that I would label it that way. For me, it was more, I get very anxious thinking. I definitely used to live fully in anxiety day by day. And now it's somewhere that I go, if my thinking's not so clear, I can definitely get into kind of nervous and anxious thinking, rather than perhaps what you might label depressed thinking. But for me, what I notice with that is that sometimes it can be helpful to call it depression or depressed thinking and anxious thinking. Most of the time, it's helpful to just know that it's thought, to just know that that passes, and that it isn't, whether it's anxiety or depression or stress or nervousness, whatever we kind of judge it as, that's not always the most helpful thing to do. What's been most helpful for me is to come back and notice that it's thought doing what thought does best. And I definitely had a huge experience of that on the stage. On the first day of the conference, I was ridiculously nervous. Like, my leg was shaking. I had to hold the microphone tightly with both hands because my hands were shaking. My stomach was starting to get a little bit crunchy, and that's kind of, and I could see that that was thought doing what thought does. Like, there was a part of me that was sitting on the stage wanting to run away, and a part of me that was sitting there going, it's perfectly fine to feel those things. And, you know, in my case, I would probably have labeled that nervous anxiety. Whether that's a label of depression, it's perfectly okay to feel that. And it's incredible what we can do anyway, because that passes. And we're not, when we just see that tiny, tiny crack of light that it's thought and it's not a solid brick wall, we can do incredible things knowing that. Like, we're not kind of tied in that way.
What I have really seen around that, you know, when I have watched different people have conversations to genuinely from their heart help people who are struggling in whatever way it is, you know, whether it's depression, anxiety, any of those things, when someone genuinely, you know, reaches out and wants to help us. What I've seen from my own experience of being in a really shitty place in my life for a lot of years, is that life itself wants to help you. You know, everywhere, in every second, it's kind of like life is kind of going, here's my hand, grab it, and I'll help you. And what we are very good at doing is believing the thinking that says, I'm different and I'm beyond help and I can't do this and this is hard for me. And what I kind of don't want to do here is dismiss anyone's bad feeling, awkward feeling, difficult feeling, sad feeling, any of those, and kind of just go, do you know what? It really doesn't matter. But what I also want to do is kind of point out how good we are as human beings at fighting to keep something we don't want. And one of the things I noticed with my own kind of recovery to be much more mentally stable and much happier and in a great place in my life and love myself and love my life was looking in the polar opposite direction. You know, when my mind would say, well, you are crap. You're never going to amount to anything. That other person is way better than you. And, you know, and you're always shit and you never blah, 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 whatever it is my thinking would say. And it's kind of like, well, what if that's not true? What if there is something else? What if there is another way? And like Bec said, just getting playful and curious with that. Because every single thing that anyone has ever said, you know, are like, just pull yourself together and get over it. To some people, that is helpful. To other people, that is something that they beat themselves up with and kind of put massive Facebook posts on and say, do you know how impossible it is to pull yourself together and just get over it? And for me, it's like realizing, do you know what? Right now, today, I can't pull myself out of this and get over it, but that's okay. There is something here that can be helpful to me. And to realize that, and some days I can pull myself together and get over it. And if I'm in that place, let's do that. And if I'm not, let's be okay that I'm not. And it is that being okay with where you are right now and just seeing, even if it is only the tiniest speck of light, be grateful for that. See it, embrace it, love it, go towards it. And I don't know if that kind of makes any sense, but I've just seen so many different things, and it's like all of anything can be helpful to someone in any given moment, and anything can be a stick to beat yourself with. And if anything looks like you're picking it up to use as a stick, just gently put it down again and see, you know, how you can see in that moment the hand that is being offered to help you. Because trust me, life is always doing that.
Yeah, I was talking to a client the other day who they didn't share the details of what had happened, but they'd done something they weren't particularly proud of and they weren't particularly happy about themselves for. And we were kind of having a conversation about exactly what Deb was just saying, kind of go in the opposite direction, getting into the story and beating themselves up. Well, it wasn't helping her. So the kind of conversation I was having was, actually, in this moment, the best thing you can do is be kind to yourself. And I kind of said, if this was, I don't know, say your best friend that was coming to you with this, what would you say to them? And how would you treat them? Would you like take them in your arms and hug them, make them a cup of tea? I don't know. And they were kind of, yeah, I probably would. Yeah, I'd give them a hug. I'd tell them, you know, life moves on. I'd tell them whatever, it's done now. I'd be really kind to them. And I was kind of like, well, then be your own best friend here. Because what I notice is that we don't get great results. And I think that comes back to what you were saying earlier. We don't get great results when we're horrible to ourselves. In the same way that if Deb's telling me I'm useless and she doesn't like, you know, how I do my work, it's probably unlikely I'm going to put out some good work if I start to kind of get into that story. And it's the same with ourselves. If we're if something's going on for us, and that our kind of question that we were going to come around to tonight is what when something bad happens, for me, it's start with being kind to yourself. Treat yourself like your own best friend. You know, what if it was your best friend that was going through this? Where would you start with them? Me, I kind of hold their hand and make them a cup of tea and we go from there. And it's just, from kindness, amazing things can happen. And kindness was something that came up at the conference a few times, wasn't it? That from that space of being the kindest we can be in any moment, amazing things can happen. And, you know, whether that's depression, anxiety, or in the case of the question, something bad that appears to be happening out in the world. We had one of our speakers at the conference 2.5 weeks ago now, I think. Her mom passed away. And kind of when that happened, she contacted and said, look, this is what's going on. I'm still hoping to be at the conference and be on the stage. But I hope you'll kind of understand if things don't work out that way. Well, she made it.
She's amazing lady.
Absolutely incredible. She had us all in tears, as you can imagine, because it was all quite raw for her. And I think, you know, if you asked her to label that, she'd probably put that under reasonably bad things that have happened to me. And yet in the midst of that, she was able to share what was going on for her. And she'd had moments, everything from breaking down and being desperately upset about it to being really peaceful and okay with it. And it's just, to my mind, it's that what we often do with stuff, no matter what it is we solid brick wall it. And what I mean by that is we kind of look at it, and in her case, for example, maybe look at it and say, you know, my mom's passed away and that's bad, full stop. solid brick wall, no, there's no wiggle room here. And what she will have had that experience, and I know she shared some of this from the stage, of having these peaceful moments in the midst of that. And for me, that just invites me to notice that if in the midst of going through one of the most kind of, I don't know, terrible grief that we can go through in our lives, she had some peaceful moments. Nothing is a solid brick wall. Nothing is as solid as it appears. And for me, that's what this conversation is about. It's about opening up to, what if it isn't 100% solid brick wall? What if it's 99.5%? And then as it becomes 99.5%, what if it's 98.5%? And just without doubt, that is what we do when we're having these conversations, is we start to see the crack of light in the solid brick wall that we've made up. And I know kind of when she was sharing from the stage about her mom, she shared this incredible moment she'd had with her. And everybody in the room felt that. And nobody in the room was feeling bad. Nobody was feeling, it wasn't grief and pain we were feeling when she shared that. It was what we were talking about earlier, this connection, this peace, this love. And to me, it then starts to invite us to go, well, when something happens, we label it as bad, as opposed to something bad happens.
Yeah, I was going to speak to, kind of talk about that sort of, what I know one of the things we talk about a lot is getting to know yourself, getting to know who you truly are. And, we kind of show up here as babies and what have you, and grow up and we have an idea of what it is that's going on, who we are and what it is that's going on here. And then, well, that was my experience. And then at some point, I kind of realized that I'd maybe got it wrong. And what I thought was going on here actually isn't going on here. And I think kind of this conversation and this investigation, if you like, what we're getting curious about is, what if what really looks like is happening isn't what's actually happening? And that's kind of the know yourself. That's kind of look, and it's an invitation. It's not, don't take my word for that. Look for yourself. And that is one of, something that has really loomed large for me too. Look for yourself, because I don't know what you're going to see, but what I do know is that if you dare to look, you're going to see something amazing. And kind of knowing yourself and knowing that. And for me, this, when something bad happens, something I get very curious around and play around with is, what's bad? Why do I label it as bad? And what if it isn't really bad? And I don't mean as in, how bad on a scale. I mean, what if there isn't anything bad? What if nothing bad can actually happen to us? Now, there might be people out there now kind of, I don't know, throwing rotten fruit at the computer and going, have you got any idea what's going on in my life? This happened and that happened. And it's, for me, what that is about is, I know at the conference we talked a little bit about this spark that every one of us has within us. And that to me, again, is that knowing ourselves, knowing there is a deeper truth about who we are. And what I do when I'm asking those questions, it's not that I'm even kind of saying, no, there isn't anything bad that can happen. I know about World War I know about World War II. I know about people whose families have died. I know about people who, friends of theirs have been shot at point blank range next to them. I heard stories and watched the news and know about rape and, all of that. So, but what I do for myself personally is look inside me to that spark, to that deeper truth of who I am. And I kind of say, I don't understand. It looks to me like really bad things happen and I don't understand. Can you show me something? And what I have seen from personal experience then is somehow or other, I get some kind of knowing of my own safety. the safety of the people that I love the most. And maybe not in form and in human, you know, maybe not in the way that is the most obvious to us. But I begin to have a deeper knowing of a truth that is just true. I don't know how to put that into other words. I don't know how to say that in any other word. But that's what comes through for me. And I have no desire whatsoever to persuade you that any of those things that I just described and any of those things I say on the news, I have no desire to fight my corner and say, oh, they're good, they're not bad. But if you are curious and if you are prepared to look for yourself in that direction, what I do know is you will see something that will blow your mind that you had no clue could even be possible. And from that space, you will begin to change those kinds of things in the world in a way that no amount of arguing, carrying placards, raising money, giving whatever you have to give, there is nothing that you could give that would change those things more than that knowing from your own heart. And I don't know if any of that makes any sense, but I know that as much as words can be truth, that is a truth. And I know that is what we touch more often than I ever thought was possible. And I know that is why we are here making this YouTube video, why we ran a conference, why we will run another one next year, why we will continue doing this pretty much all day, every day, having fun, loving life, and inviting people to get curious and look what they see for themselves in any way that makes sense to us.
Well, I think you just started the topic grounding. I feel like we kind of, I notice this happens very regularly on our YouTube shows as we have a question and we have a topic. And as we're finishing kind of answering the question, we've kind of moved into the topic without even meaning to. And yeah, so our topic tonight was grounding. What is it? Because I noticed, I think I can't remember which one of us said this when we were talking about which topic to go with, but definitely that was one of those things that over the course of the 3 days at the conference, what really came to me was every person that kind of got up on stage and spoke was what we would term grounded. And it's, you know, it's one of those terms that gets bandied around this kind of conversation. And so we'd said that in a few places, and I think other people did. And it just kind of looked like, why not let's have a conversation about what that even means to us and why we talk about being grounded in this understanding. Because it's so easy to just fling words around and not really kind of know what we're meaning or what we're pointing to. And I think what you were kind of just saying there and how we kind of started this whole conversation was this something about knowing something to be true is what grounding is for me. And I know there was a conversation that I think was had between some of the speakers. I don't know if it was before the conference or a separate time and place, but it got mentioned during the conference. And I think that the question was something around where's kind of the end of your knowing or the end of your understanding. And then what they were kind of exploring was what they do and how they share as far as they understand. And what I mean by that is I feel like I can tell if somebody's in front of me talking about something they know about versus someone who's just repeating somebody else's words. You can kind of feel the difference. And I can feel the difference in myself if I start to stray off into...
I can feel it.
Into
things. Oh, I'm repeating this and I don't really know what I mean here.
and for me, that grounding is talking from and being clear about what I know to be true. What I know to be true for me. And then it's almost just, I kind of then just open up to see if it's true for you. And I find myself saying that a lot, see if it's true for you, because it doesn't look to me like this conversation is about me just telling you something that looks true. It's about me sharing what is my experience and what has proven to be true for me and giving you kind of maybe the invitation to go, well, could that be true for me? And I don't know, that's my start of a 10 on grounding.
What was coming to me when you were talking about this was when I was very first introduced to this understanding, I had a moment of what I was hit between the eyes, and I absolutely had a moment. And then it was kind of like, I need to tell everyone about this. I need to tell everyone about this. So one of the first things that I did was gather a group of my closest friends together and say, you know, oh my gosh, I've seen something amazing. I've got to tell you about this. And, you know, they came around and I'd kind of, you know, oh, it can solve all of your problems and all this. And then these group of people came. I think there was about 4 people and me, you know, who were my friends. And then they started to kind of talk about their problems. And I literally went into a place of, oh, that sounds like a real problem. I don't know the answer to that. I can't do this. And over time, what I realized was I had no grounding. And the minute somebody talked about their story, the minute somebody talked about something bad happening, I was in that story and I was seeing it as bad. And I had no idea that there was even anything else to see. I'd had this one little insight but I had no grounding for that insight. I had nothing else to give. And it was a great lesson. It was great learning. And I made bazillions of mistakes on the way, you know, very similar to that, and very much. And I have done I've heard somebody else's words and those words sound amazing. And I've repeated those words and then someone has questioned me about them. And I'm like, yeah, I don't even know. They just sound great, but I don't know what that is. And very much to me, you know, the statement that I was making earlier, and when I was talking about how I kind of ask for guidance and how I do, you could prod me and question me on that till forever, and I'm clear. I know what I see. I know, for me personally, I know that everything that appears to be bad in this world is a story that we have made up. And as I said, I have no interest in defending that. I have no interest in, trying to make you see life like that. I have no interest in it at all. But I feel my own personal grounding in that is now rock solid. And can it be, sometimes am I slippy on that rock? Yeah. When, I've got a family, I've got 3 kids, I've got a grandchild, I live with Lou and Beck, stuff happens in my life. And can it feel like, but I have a grounding that cannot be shaken. The minute I get quiet again, that's what I come back to. And yeah, for me, I think part of the grounding is I've learned not to, I don't worry if someone else is interested in that or not. These conversations very much for me are, if you're curious like I was curious, this is a conversation I would have loved to have been able to be a part of with somebody. I would have loved somebody to kind of give me some pointers to kind of point the direction to kind of do that. And I'm massively interested in doing that for people. And then if they have stuff come up, have conversations about it. But I want you to see what you see for yourself. What I have seen for me is my personal stuff, and it's helped me. But your own grounding is what is where you will stand. That's your stuff, and that will be personal to you and be incredibly helpful to you.
Yeah, I was just thinking as you were talking about, you said something about a slippy rock, and it reminded me when we were at Sunday school as very, very young kids, we used to sing a song. There was a parable in the Bible, and we used to sing a song about it, about a wise man and a foolish man, and where they built their houses. And the wise man builds his house on a rock, a firm rock, and the foolish man builds his house on the sand, and then rain.
No foundation.
Yeah, no foundation, no solidity, and the rains kind of come down and the seas come up, and the foolish man's house falls down and the wise man's house is firm. And it's very much kind of a metaphor for exactly what you were kind of saying there. You've spent the time, and I think kind of working alongside you, I've now spent the time really kind of looking inward, getting to know how this works, querying things, questioning things. Are you sure? You sure this is how it works? You know, and getting to know that to be true for me, and not kind of taking anyone's word for it, and you kind of the same. It's just finding those firm foundations, finding what really is rock solidly true for me. And I don't talk from something I'm not clear about. If I'm having, because I notice one of the things that can happen sometimes is that someone can ask a question, and for a minute I can be like, oh yeah, I don't know, in that scenario, yeah, that doesn't look like it can work that way. It doesn't look like there can be an okayness there. And what I kind of really notice happens for me is that I've talked about this, I think, before. I get out of the way, like Becky and Becky's stories and thoughts get out of the way, and I let that grounding come through, and I let that truth work through me. And so when somebody asks the questions they ask, and when we get the topics and the questions we do, you know, when I write some of them down, sometimes I'm thinking, I have no idea what we could possibly say about that. That looks like a really tough question. And yet, because I've just immersed myself in getting to know how this really works, I just find that comes through me, that I don't have to have the answer up here. Like, that for me is the difference with this conversation, is that I'm not having to answer that. You know, like if you asked me what 1,922 was times 1,754, I don't know that. I've got no idea. I could probably find a calculator. I've already forgotten what numbers I said. But when you kind of ask, or when people say, what about depression? Or what about when something bad happens? I don't even look for an intellectual answer. No, I just wait for my heart to speak. Because that to me is what grounding is trusting. Like I said right back at the beginning, my living and learning has been this reminder that we can trust life. And that is in every single moment for me. Even when someone asks a question that looks on paper like it's going to be ludicrously difficult to provide an answer, like I can trust that I know that the answer is there for me. And it's not from my head. It's not, you know, a 2 + 2 question or whatever numbers I just came up with. It's not an intellectual thing. Grounding is a heart game. Like, our hearts are grounded in this conversation. They are grounded in knowing how we truly work, and then trusting that, because I know sometimes that people can ask me questions, and if I really don't know how to answer, I'll say that, because sometimes I don't need to know the answer. And even that I can trust. If I'm supposed to know how to answer someone, I will. And if it feels like I don't know how to answer, then maybe I'm not supposed to. Maybe that's supposed to be them answering. I know Deb's been speaking to a client recently that's sort of asking some questions like that at the moment. And one of the things it's like, actually find an answer for you, because none of what goes on for us is any different to that. Like, we don't kind of say to someone, find your answer and look inside, and then we don't do the same. We're saying that because that's what we do. We kind of, you know, we go inside, and I don't mean literally, obviously. It's a metaphorical inside. Something about us knows the answer when questions like that come up. And so, yeah, when you ask your questions and we answer them, that's kind of what we're seeing to be true. But right back at you, what's your thoughts on depression? What about when something bad happens to you? What's your answer to that? Because in looking for your answer to that, that'll be way more profound than anything we can spout on YouTube.
Yeah. And look beyond what you think you know.
Yeah. We're
not kind of pointing you to look to that first really obvious, well, it's this. Look beyond what you think you know. And what was kind of coming to me when you were talking about the trust there was, I know I shared this at the conference, so if anyone was there, you know, I'm sorry, a little bit of a repeating, but one of the things that I really like to share is what is actually going on for me in that moment. And it turned out that the conference started last Thursday. It was Thursday, Friday and Saturday, and on the Wednesday before that, my daughter had to have an operation, and it meant that she couldn't lift the baby for a week, and her husband had to go to work. And this all kind of came about a week before the conference. And, you know, she kind of had a huge panic because, you know, Mom was at a conference and how was she going to cope? What was she going to do? How was this going to work out? And my first reaction was, oh my gosh, you know, the one time in my entire calendar that I can't shift and I can't be there for her is the conference. You know, what do I do? And then I kind of remembered this trust, and I was like, something will work itself out. And one of the things that I truly, truly love about this understanding is that, you know, we talk deeply and we talk about our hearts and we talk about looking within and all this. And then your daughter kind of phones you up and says, Mom, I've got to have an operation this day and you're not going to be there. And you know, how's this going to work and what's going to happen? And it's in those moments, real life, where the rubber really hits the road for real people, that having this grounding and having this understanding makes a difference. Because in that moment, I did not have an answer. To me, it did look like, I need to be there to look after my daughter. There isn't another solution here. That's what I need to do. And yet I can't. And it's like, I have to, the only answer appears to be that I have to be in two places at once. Oh, you know, what do I do with that? And then it's kind of trust. And you know what came about, what actually happens, looks now so simple and so obvious and so, well, duh, yeah, why wouldn't you do that? And yet, and you know, maybe there are 50 of the possibilities too. But in that moment, with my thinking and where we both were, it didn't look like there was another solution. And a grounding to me is when you see past that and when you trust and when you know that that is the thinking that you are believing to be true in this moment that is blocking there being another possibility. And you know what actually did happen was I arranged for my other daughter who lives in London to come and stay a few days with her sister, and they just had the most amazing time. And you know what's kind of gone on between them and what's gone on with my daughter since then has just blown me away. And it's like, from that moment of believing that the only solution was me not being at the conference or me not looking after my daughter and being the worst mother in the entire universe, all I could do, all I had in that moment was my grounding and the ability to take a breath and trust that there was something else here for me to see. And what we're pointing to is that simple and that useful. But I'm guessing if you've ever been, or if you're in a situation at the moment that looks really impossible, like you're caught in depression or something really bad has just happened to you, you know, you're maybe looking at this computer and going, yeah, but you know, that is easy. That was easy to solve. What about this? Well, what we're suggesting is that is no different. There is an answer there. We do have this wisdom. We can drop into our hearts. We can see something. And it is there in every moment for us to be able to do that. And maybe we won't for a month or a year or a week or a day or an hour, but that's okay too. It's there for us when we are ready to see it.
Yeah, I love how that works. I really love that kind of wisdom and kindness behind the system, that when we need to know the answer, because I know I was kind of not long after you'd realised that Laura was having her operation the day before the conference, you kind of came home and we were a bit like, oh, how is this possibly going to unravel itself? Like, it doesn't look possible to me that you cannot be at the conference, Deb. And definitely there was, I don't know how long, maybe it was the next morning, we both got up and I'd actually had a little moment where I thought, oh, I've got an idea. And before I'd managed to say it to you, you'd come up with the idea of Gemma, her sister, coming and helping out. And that actually crossed my mind as well. And it really interested me that it looks in the moment where something like that happens like we need an instant answer. Like, what's the solution? I need it now. And okay, it maybe only took sort of 12 hours before that kind of resolved itself. But those 12 hours, we can drive ourselves to insanity trying to work out what the answer should be.
Find the answer in our head.
Yeah. And yet the answers, when we need them, will be there. And we can get very lost and very confused in trying to find answers before we actually need them. And that again is where the trust and the grounding comes in. The more I kind of know that I can trust this, the less I drive myself to insanity trying to resolve things that aren't mine to resolve. So yeah.
Oh, I think we've come to the end of another one of our YouTube shows. Yes, the hours do speed past. Is there anything in that writing that we...
Lisa just popped up to say she loves the conversation. Thank you, Lisa.
Love you too, Lisa. So all that it looks to me that is left to say is that we will be back here again next week. And if you have really loved this conversation and you would like to work with us, you would like to, you know, deepen your grounding, you would like to delve a little deeper with what it is we do, we absolutely love working with people. We do mentoring. We've got some other programs that are coming up, you know, our Christmas programs. We talked about the Advent calendar, the retreat that we've got coming, and the mini mentoring. We would absolutely love you to join in with something. It would be brilliant. We have a whole lot of fun, and yeah, it's always great to have you along. So
yeah, join in. And as always, if you've got topics or question ideas for us, please send them in, because we love to do kind of talk to what's helpful for you. So
yeah, so if anything's come up from this for you, please, you know, feel free to comment on this video or message us privately. We do our best to answer everything that we possibly can.
We do. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, it's great to have you with us. Enjoy your evening. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.